Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Eliott Rodriguez in this week for Jim DeFede. 2024 might be the year of Everglades restoration. In late January, we were there as Governor Ron DeSantis cut the ribbon on a 6,000-acre Everglades water treatment site just south of Lake Okeechobee. It was the first public event DeSantis attended after dropping out of the presidential race. I talked this week to one of the biggest Everglades ambassadors, Alligator Ron Bergeron. Ron is also a member of the governing board of the South Florida Water Management District. He's a Florida cowboy with deep roots in the river of grass. Ron Bergeron, good talking to you. Tell me about the ribbon-cutting event that you attended with Governor DeSantis last month to unveil a new water treatment area south of Lake Okeechobee. How important is this project for Everglades restoration?
Well, that was a great day for the Everglades, and that particular project is extremely important. It's an STA, which cleans water. It has multiple cells in it, planted with a variety of grass to filtrate and clean the nutrients before they enter the central Everglades and work their way south into Everglades National Park and Florida Bay, which delivers clean water into our beautiful Everglades.
Now, this water that is going into the reservoir is coming from Lake Okeechobee. What is the condition of this water? What type of pollutants are in this water?
Well, you have various nitrates and phosphorus from a variety of agricultural areas that come down from Boggy Creek just below Orlando through the Kissimmee River floodplains that enters Lake Okeechobee through the Kissimmee River and Taylor Creek and Fish Eating Creek and moves its way south. So in order to save the Everglades, our environment, it's important that we pre-treat and remove the nutrients that enter the beautiful Everglades, because the Everglades is extremely important. It's a watershed. It replenishes the aquifer, which is our drinking water, which is one of the most important resources on the planet. So extremely important, this project. And coming online right beside it is the EAA reservoir that will store water and release that water to agriculture, water supply, and compatible water levels to the Everglades to make sure that it is very compatible to the plant communities and the wildlife.
And Ron, how long does it take for that to happen? You got this water that is containing nutrients and pollutants from Lake Okeechobee, and it's in the reservoir. How long does it take in the reservoir? What exactly happens in that reservoir to clean that water, and how long does it take?
Well, water is staged as it enters certain quantities, and as it filtrates slowly through the various grasses, water could stay in there for several months and then released as it's pre-treated and the nutrients settle. And it's important also that the reservoir that's being constructed now that will be storing water and releasing in compatible volumes to the environment and water supply, and so we have a quality of life for future generations.
Well, Ron, we've been talking about these reservoirs and cleaning the water as it flows through the Everglades for many years, if not a couple of decades. How frustrated has it been for you, somebody who literally grew up in the Everglades, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. How frustrating has it been waiting for days like that ribbon cutting with Governor DeSantis to come?
Well, I will say under the leadership of Governor DeSantis in the last 5 years, we've had 67 projects that have been completed under his leadership. I've never seen such momentum. I think that it's important for future generations that we protect the Everglades, protect our drinking water, the most important resource on the planet, and important that we have a balance in Florida and outside of the Everglades and the wildlife corridor and our natural resources, that we have the infrastructure to have jobs and economical growth too. So it's the largest environmental restoration in the history of the world. This started in 2000 under the leadership of Jeb Bush, and we're 24 years in, trying to correct the compartmentalization of the Everglades that started in 1948 for 52 years. So it's extremely important to the public and our citizens here. We are the fishing capital of the world, the boating capital of the world, and we have over 100 million tourists that come here to not only see the Everglades and our beaches and hotels. And so the health of our rivers and the proper quantity, quality, timing, and distribution of water is so important to all of our natural resources. So South Florida will have a quality of life for future generations.
And Ron, you mentioned former Governor Jeb Bush, and I think of his leadership more than 20 years ago. I think of former Senator and Governor Bob Graham, former Congresswoman from Miami, Eliott Ross-Leighton, and Clay Shaw from Broward County. These have all been champions of the Everglades, and really, no matter what their political label is, do you see the Everglades as a unifying factor in a state where sometimes we're too divided when it comes to politics?
Well, you're right. But I think the leadership of, even going back to Reuben Askew and Senator Graham and Governor Graham and Lawton Chiles and Jeb Bush and the leadership of Ron DeSantis, the momentum I've seen in the last 5 years gives me great hope that we are going to have a quality of life in Florida and clean water for future generations. Extremely important.
All right, let's talk about you a little bit, Ron Bergeron, because you're known as Alligator Ron. How did you get that nickname, and tell me how your story, how far back it goes in the Florida Everglades?
Well, my family entered Florida back in the 1800s. Been here 8 generations. Entered in the Plant City area, and eventually, before the turn of the century, Lake Okeechobee, they actually fished on the lake. That's back when we didn't have a world economy, and ended up in Davie in 1910, where I grew up, and introduced to the beautiful Everglades by my grandfather in the 1940s. He was a game warden over this beautiful environment. And how blessed am I? He taught me how important the environment is and how important the wildlife and it's our drinking water. And to have a quality of life, we cannot destroy this watershed. So we grew up as cowboys in the town of Davie, the Bergeron rodeo grounds, and that's back in a time before we even had flood protection. Actually, flood protection started in 1948, brought on by the 47 flood. And what we've done over that time frame, I think we are correcting our mistakes in regards to the environment and making sure that 10 million people that live here in South Florida and future generations have a quality of life and economical growth in the right areas.
And Ron, when I talked to you recently, you brought up a good point. You said that saving the Everglades is not just about the environment. It's not just saving, an environment for birds and an ecosystem for bugs and rare spiders and whatnot. That this has to do with our ability to live in this region. For the water that we drink has to be pure. Otherwise, you're not going to have life in South Florida, which is basically a swamp, correct?
Well, you're absolutely right. And I think the citizens of South Florida are starting to recognize that importance. You don't have to be a hunter, a fisherman, a wildlife photographer, a hiker, a bird watcher. It's actually, if you live in a 40-story building, you got to have drinking water. That infrastructure is so important. And that's why the journey of water is the life of Florida, from sawgrass to seagrass, and to reestablish the proper quantity and quality and timing and distribution out our rivers, the Caloosahatchee, the St. Lucie, the Indian River Lagoon, and make sure that the 1,500,000 acre feet of water that flowed in an average rain year travels through the River of Grass to Florida Bay and Biscayne Bay. Extremely important that we have a quality of life and we have that balance in certain areas to where we do have jobs and economical growth. And I think the citizens of South Florida recognize that how important that is. And I'm honored to be a part of that, working with Governor DeSantis.
Well, everyone in Florida should be grateful for your role in saving the Everglades, because the River of Grass is a treasure that all of us need and all of us should respect and all of us take care of. Ron Bergeron, thank you very much for joining us on Facing South Florida.
Thank you, and long live the Everglades.
When we come back, my guest is a former Miami-Dade police sergeant who was a cop for nearly 40 years, and now he's written a book about his service in the police force. It's called The Real Greatest Show on Earth, and he has quite a story to share. That's next.